Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports. My name is Reese and today I'm joining you from China for the sprint race ahead. In the next few minutes, we have about 10 minutes and 5 seconds remaining until we get underway for the Formula One Lenovo Chinese Grand Prix sprint, of course, here today. We have the sprint this morning and then a little bit later on, we have the full qualifying for tomorrow's race. It was quite an exciting sprint qualifying yesterday afternoon. A lot of chaos in the latter stages. SQ1 and SQ2 were pretty normal and plain sailing for Max Verstappen as per usual, topping the timing sheets. But then SQ3 came in and really just chucked everything at us for a really interesting final quali session yesterday afternoon. The rain really bucketed it down, made the track quite wet and very slippery. They've repainted the track here. They haven't resurfaced it. So it is quite slippery over the top as they're still adding rubber down on the circuit. And that just allowed the track surface to be super slippery. And all of the cars were driving around like they were on ice. We saw Charles Leclerc slide off into the wall in the early stages of that SQ3 session. We saw other drivers slipping and sliding all over Max Verstappen, losing his car going into the gravel. So it was just tricky all around there. And of course, we want to see a little bit of a spanner getting thrown into the works because it means that we get some better and more exciting grid starts for this sprint race here today. I don't know what's going to happen in qualifying later this morning as well. Hopefully we get a little bit of rain as well to just mix things up. But it is looking a little bit more clear today. It's quite overcast, but not looking as dark as it was yesterday afternoon when we did get that rain, or yesterday morning, should I say. JP says, these early morning sessions are killer. Yes, they certainly are. It is 10 to 5 in South Africa, but of course, we are always dedicated to Formula One and up bright and early to bring you the Formula One coverage. Be sure to let me know where you're watching in from. I see we have 60 of you down in the stream right now. Be sure to drop a comment in the comment section letting me know where you're watching in from and who you're supporting for today's sprint race. We're watching Lewis Hamilton getting ready to start. He's in his car getting strapped in. He is starting from second place here today. He had a really good sprint qualifying yesterday afternoon. Of course, the only real opportunities that the Mercedes had to compete here today is because of the wet conditions yesterday, as well as Lando Norris up at the top of the timing boards yesterday afternoon with a 157.9 was the fastest lap time set at the end of qualifying. Hamilton with a 159.2. Then Fernando Alonso is starting in third. His fastest quality time was a 159.9. Then Max Verstappen down in fourth, only able to put in a 2 minute 0.028. So it just shows that the conditions were really tricky yesterday. That Max Verstappen wasn't even able to put together a clean lap, and he's starting down in fourth. We have Carlos Sainz then in fifth, Sergio Perez in sixth, Charles Leclerc seventh. Oscar Piastri had a great afternoon as well, down in eighth place. Valtteri Bottas then in ninth for his kick Sauber. His teammate Zhou Guanyu, the home hero around here in Shanghai, is starting down in 10th. George Russell 11th. Kevin Magnussen in 12th. Nico Hülkenberg 13th. Daniel Ricciardo 14th. Lance Stroll in 15th. Pierre Gasly 16th. Esteban Ocon 17th. Alex Albon in 18th. Yuki Tsunoda in 19th. And Logan Sargent all the way down in 20th. Logan Sargent still struggling out there, but just not even having to participate in the rain as he was out in that first sprint qualifying section. Yuki Tsunoda, though, all the way down in 19th. A bit of an odd one for him as his teammate Daniel Ricciardo is all the way up in 14th. First time he's been out-qualified by his teammate this season. But we'll have to wait and see what he can do throughout the sprint qualifying session. Hopefully it's just him learning the track a little bit more. It's the first time we've been here in five years, almost in 5 minutes. It hasn't been that quick. But as I said, it's the first time we've been here in 5 years. A lot of the drivers, it's their first time racing around the circuit. It is not an easy circuit at all, though. That first corner can really catch so many people out. It's pretty much a triple, if not quadruple apex right-hander, and then you swung into a left-hander straight away as well. It is a really tricky one. It can make or break your race if you get it right in the first corner, or if you get it wrong, of course, and get sent careering into another driver. But just looking at the weather over the circuit, it is still very hazy. Hopefully it means we could get some interesting weather throughout, but right now it is clear out in Shanghai as we have 4 minutes and 50 seconds left to go until we get the green light of this sprint race out in Shanghai. We're now getting the titles rolling for the Formula One sprint race. So be sure to let me know in the comment section where you are watching in from. My name is Reese here on Forever Motorsports, as well as be sure to check out our channel sponsors, BITDEFENDER, down linked in the comments below or in this description below for all of your cyber security needs. Just watching some replays from yesterday, just an absolute mess at the end of sprint qualifying. But Lando Norris coming out on top, saying simply beautiful. Thank you very much to DOHC, saying thanks for streaming. Of course, thank you very much for joining alongside with us. We've got 98 of you watching. Hopefully that will pick up a little bit. It is very, very early, so we do understand. But now watching the titles as we'll make our way through that grid once again, once it does pop up. 3 minutes and 40 seconds now left until the start of this race. As we have Lindiwe in the chat. Good morning, Lindiwe, starting very early with us here today. Lando Norris, of course, starting from pole here today. It's going to be a very exciting race. I'm sure there will be a lot of support for Lando Norris. Will he be able to take his first? Does it really count as a race win if it's a sprint race win? I mean, I guess I counted-ish for Oscar Piastri, but what will Lando Norris be able to do here, though, today? Now, looking at some stats about this race here today in China, this is trying to remember how many races we've had. This is the 5th round of the 2024 season. Wow, can't believe that the races are going by so quickly. As Narol Porchita says hello from Josie a tad bit early in the morning. The track distance is 5.4 kilometers with 19 turns, a top speed of 343.8 kilometers an hour with 16 turns, and an elevation of 7.3 meters. Looking at the weather once again, it is quite overcast here, looking very hazy for the sprint race, but it is looking like it is holding out for now. Coming from the back of the grid to the front, Logan Sargent, then Yuki Tsunoda in 20th and 19th, Alex Albon 18th, Esteban Ocon 17th. Then in 16th place, we've got Pierre Gasly with Lance Stroll alongside him to keep him company for the start. Then 14th is Daniel Ricciardo out-qualifying his teammate Yuki Tsunoda for the first time this season, with Nico Hülkenberg, the German, alongside him. Kevin Magnussen 12th, George Russell in 11th, not having the greatest qualifying session yesterday at all, getting knocked out in SQ2. Then 10th place is Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, his teammate, alongside him. What can the home hero Zhou Guanyu do here today? Oscar Piastri, a one-time sprint race winner, in 8th place. Charles Leclerc in 7th. Sergio Perez then starting in 6th with Carlos Sainz alongside him. I think that row will be quite a punchy one into the first corner. Speaking of a punchy row on the grid, Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso in 4th and 3rd, with Lewis Hamilton in 2nd and Lando Norris ahead of them. It's going to be a very exciting start to the sprint race. What do we think is going to happen? It is still looking very overcast and very hazy, but the rain is holding out. Will we get a little bit of rain throughout this race? So it is yet to be seen. We'll have to wait and see what China has for us here today. And of course, tomorrow as well for the full race. Looking at Fernando Alonso, though, in 3rd place, I'm quite excited to see what he's going to be able to do here in the sprint race. He is so punchy on his first couple of laps, as well as he's just such a level-headed driver is Fernando Alonso. He's got that new contract now coming to the next 3 seasons. He expects it to be one of his last contracts in Formula One. I'm certainly hoping not, but he is going to have something to say, though, into that first corner. I'm sure you cannot discount Fernando Alonso. Or the drivers expecting it to be a pretty tricky start though here today, watching with Lewis Hamilton on a brand new set of medium tyres. It is quite a high degradation circuit, so it makes sense that they're all going out onto the medium, hopefully to be able to stay out for the entirety of this sprint race. As now they are leaving their grid boxes. Lewis Hamilton, though, starting ahead of Lando Norris, as he does now back up and let Norris ahead of him. Formation lap is now getting underway as we're waiting for the start of this sprint race. The green lights are all being shown and the final cars are making their way away from their grid boxes. It's going to be interesting to see what the Red Bulls can do today. Of course, starting a little bit outside of their norm in 4th and 6th with Verstappen and Perez, but their car has been the absolute form of the field in the dry round here this weekend, so I'm sure they'll have something to show. George Russell is the only driver throughout the entire grid that is not starting on a set of mediums, so he's going to be very punchy off the start, but he has to be able to look after his tyres for the entirety of this race. It is a 19-lap race. Lando Norris going to be starting and leading the race from the beginning, but who will be able to mount an attack from behind as we're watching the final couple of drivers making their way through Sector 1. Lando Norris leading them all nice and slowly, though, through the entire grid. Or through the entire circuit, rather. Of course, we do have a little bit of a different format for sprint races this weekend. Normally, it used to be sprint qualifying, or qualifying and then the sprint race, and now it's the sprint race and then qualifying. But we are quite happy with the tweaks to the sprint weekend format. It is getting a little bit darker, though, approaching the final couple of corners, so we could maybe get a bit of a spanner thrown into the works. Looking at the Live Drivers' Championship, though, Max Verstappen already in first place quite clearly with 77 points. His teammate Sergio Perez in second with 64 points. Getting a little bit of support there from F123 saying, let's go Lando. Of course, I know that is who you support, F123. As DOHC says, happy for anyone but Max to win. Leonardo Longhi says, hello there, is Alonso planning to stay until he's 50? I'm not complaining. I think he needs to stay until he's 60. Let's leave him in until he's not competitive anymore. I don't see why not. He is such a great addition to the sport and we love having him on the grid. He always provides some really exciting shows for all of us. 192 of you watching alongside with us now. Be sure to hit the like button so that we can get recommended a little bit more in the search bar. Max Verstappen now making his way up towards his pit box, just starting to back the rest of the grid up as the first three are already waiting in their pit boxes or their starting boxes. So watching the final couple of drivers now making their way around the final corner to line up on their starting grid. We finally have the last 5 now coming towards their pit wall start grids, and we're waiting for the light to get going. As TC says, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, TC. 228 of you now watching alongside with us. Be sure to hit that like button as the entire grid is now formed up, waiting for that green flag to be waved as it is now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lights now showing out, and away we go. Good start from Lewis Hamilton, getting ahead already of Lando Norris towards turn 1. Lando Norris getting better into the second phase of that start, but Lewis Hamilton with the inside line. Lando Norris trying to go around the outside. Will he have the pace to do it before turn 3? Ooh, he goes wide and is sent off into the runoff zone. He loses 5-6 positions. Max Verstappen up into third place now. Fernando Alonso starting to put pressure onto the back of Lewis Hamilton into turn 4. What can Hamilton do now to fend off Fernando Alonso? He is really fighting it off. Will he take a lunge into turn 5? No, he doesn't, as now Charles Leclerc trying to go around the outside of Max Verstappen. Lindiwe is saying, oh dear, for Lando Norris. Difficult start for himself. Ferrari of, that's actually Carlos Sainz, not Charles Leclerc, looking at the inside of Max Verstappen, but Verstappen starting to get away. Sergio Perez looking at making a bit of a move, as now Lando Norris picks up the paces and regains, or tries to regain a position on Charles Leclerc, but gets boxed off by Perez and Leclerc. Really close between the top 5 right now. Superman saying, playing the Chinese Grand Prix track on F123 while listening. Thank you very much for joining us, Superman. As TC says, come on, Lewis. He's already leading by 0.7 seconds, 0.8 seconds now. Brilliant for himself, taking advantage of all of the chaos behind, as Max Verstappen is now starting to fight it out with Fernando Alonso. Carlos Sainz trying to get around the outside of Sergio Perez into the long braking zone, as now Carlos Sainz also getting close to Max Verstappen. Verstappen still trying to chase down Fernando Alonso. Very exciting opening stages of this race. The Red Bulls not seeming like they have the pace as we thought they did. F123 saying, my week is ruined. Don't give up just yet. Lando Norris can still make back those positions. He's down in 7th with Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, Verstappen, Alonso and Hamilton ahead of him. So to go over our grid now after lap 1. We're going into lap 2 as Max Verstappen goes very wide here. Stroll says, Hulkenberg pushed me off. To once again go over our grid, we have Hamilton in 1st, Alonso 2nd, Verstappen 3rd, Carlos Sainz in 4th, Perez 5th, Leclerc 6th, Norris 7th, down 6 positions, Piastri 8th, Zhou 9th, Magnussen 10th, Bottas 11th, 12th is Russell, Ricciardo 13th, Hulkenberg 14th, Stroll 15th, Ocon 16th, Gasly 17th, Tsunoda 18th, Albon 19th, and Sargent down in 20th. Bit of a long DRS train forming at the moment. DOHC saying, definitely happy to see Lewis win too. I'm in school at the moment. Just rewatching this first corner from the start of the race. It is such a tricky corner. And Lewis Hamilton had a phenomenal start there, just getting on the inside of Lando Norris, who was just ever so slow on the start. But Lewis Hamilton just getting the better run to 200 kilometers an hour and getting that inside line and pushing Lando Norris a little bit wide and getting the preferential line. And DOA saying Mercedes car seems to be weather sensitive. I wonder if the car will hold P1 for the whole race, maybe if it rains. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. It is a very tricky circuit in the wet, and it is starting to look quite great overhead. The Red Bulls seem to struggle a little bit in the wet chairs, and we're now seeing Max Verstappen getting put under a lot of pressure by Carlos Sainz, trying to take 3rd position, but Max Verstappen holding on to it for now. Lance Stroll being, Lance Stroll, after being vocal, having that incident investigated now with Hulkenberg for pushing another driver off the track. Verstappen's really struggling on the tyres. It seems quite cold out here as Carlos Sainz had a bit of a lockup, now allowing Verstappen to go ahead a little bit. Perez also trying to close that gap now to Carlos Sainz. At lap 3 of 19 now for the Formula 1 sprint race. Not a lot of action, unfortunately, but hopefully we get a little bit more in these closing stages. Alonso now 1 second behind Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton running away with the race win already so far. Max Verstappen 1.7 off the back of Fernando Alonso, as Doc just says, my friends call me Doc, as Verstappen says, why is my battery flat? So that is possibly the reason why he's really struggling. He's got no state of charge in his car, which means he cannot deploy the battery, and why Carlos Sainz is able to catch up to him so much. Watching George Russell now making use of those soft tyres, getting past Kevin Magnussen for 10th place now. That took a really long time to make up a position for himself. He started in 11th, and now he's finally made up his first position for the day. But on a set of soft tires. He should have made that move happen quite a while ago as we come down the hill into turn 1 now. He's getting put under a lot of pressure by Magnussen behind his Russell for that 10th position. Still not given that place, but we'll have to wait and see what he's able to do. Just watching a replay of that move into that big braking zone at the end of the long straight. 300 of you watching alongside with us now. Thank you very much for joining us. Verstappen seems to be finding a little bit more pace now. 1.4 seconds, 1.3 seconds now to Alonso ahead of him. So it seems like they've fixed that battery issue for the Red Bull car. KTC saying, hi, Reese. Hi, everyone. Go Lewis Hamilton. Thank you very much for joining us in the stream. If you have just joined us, like Katie has, Hamilton has gotten the upper hand over Lando Norris in the opening stages of this race. Alonso now 1.2 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton, with Verstappen 1.5 seconds off, 1.4 seconds now off the back of Alonso. We'll have to wait and see what happens throughout the rest of this race. Superman saying, wanted Norris to get his first win. So did I, but unfortunately it's still a sprint race, so it doesn't really count towards being a proper race win. As Yanni says, Red Bull needs to get their batteries with the bunny on them. They are the best, such as is with Williams, who are sponsored by Duracell. Watching Carlos Sainz chasing down Max Verstappen, but Verstappen is now slowly running away from him. Verstappen closing that gap to Fernando Alonso ahead of him. Doc saying, I bet this is the last position Lewis thought he'd be coming into this weekend. I'm pretty sure that he thought absolutely nothing of the sort, because that Mercedes has not been as competitive this season as it was in past ones. As Lewis says, Alonso's in an interesting position. Do you attack for P1 or hold on to P2 against Verstappen because you know Verstappen has the fastest car on the grid? Yes, certainly a very, very interesting conundrum that he has ahead of him right now, as Sainz is still trying to chase down Verstappen, but Verstappen is closing that gap now to Alonso ahead of him. 1.2 seconds, 1.1 now, as I say, that is that gap. So Verstappen clearly being able to sort out that state of charge issue that he was having on his car, and now slowly reeling in the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. Stewart's noting no further investigation for that incident between Lance Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg. Katie saying thank you for the updates. No problem at all, as we have 360 of you watching alongside with us and only 11 likes on the video. Be sure to hit that like button. It does help us a lot. And be sure to check out our channel partners, BITDEFENDER, linked in the description below. Hamilton still running away from this race right now. Verstappen trailing Fernando Alonso behind by 1.3 seconds, as is the gap from Alonso to Hamilton at 1.5. Now, we're seeing some really long DRS trains around here today. Not a lot of racing as we've seen in the past. This has normally been a great circuit for overtaking, but just being a little bit stagnant here this morning. Francois Tremblay just saying, just joined. I'm sorry, could you repeat what happened to Norris? Norris just had a bad start, lost it out to Lewis Hamilton into turn 1, got pushed a little bit wide, and unfortunately lost about 6 positions in a space of 1 corner. Verstappen still staying around that 1.2 second, 1.3 second gap towards Fernando Alonso, not being able to make it up any further than that. What is happening with that Red Bull right now? It is seeming quite tricky out on circuit. Low temperatures out here in China. Very, very overcast. But we're watching Max Verstappen now chasing down Fernando Alonso and getting a little bit closer on this lap. Watching, though, with Sergio Perez as well now, starting to close that gap to Carlos Sainz ahead of him. It is such a tricky circuit around here in China, such a conundrum in terms of what you do with your setup. Do you go for low downforce to be able to be super quick down those long straights, or do you have to put on a ton of downforce to be able to make it through the likes of turn 1 and those really long sustained power hairpins that we have around here? Looking now at the front 4 with Hamilton, Alonso and Verstappen. Verstappen now closing that gap to Alonso on this lap, as a big lockup for Charles Leclerc that allows Lando Norris to close the gap to him. Russell now closing down the gap to Zhou Guanyu, the home hero, ahead of him. And then we have the rest of the grid as well coming down that final back straight. Verstappen now 0.8 seconds to Alonso ahead of him. 0.5 seconds now as I say that, as Naman S says Joe with some cool emojis there. As Scronta Maria says, go Alonso. Ooh, big snap of oversteer for Carlos Sainz chasing down Verstappen. 0.5 seconds is that gap from Verstappen to Alonso. He has now deployed a bit more of the battery charge. I wonder if he was just recharging for a couple of laps to get that stated charge up after you had that battery issue. Alonso started third. Verstappen started fourth. They're currently second and third, trading blows in terms of their times. But Verstappen has now closed down that gap to 0.5 seconds. What will he be able to do in the next couple of laps? Will he make a late lunge? It is quite a tricky circuit in terms of making those lunges. As Superman says, true, but would help with his confidence. Watching a replay of George Russell on the opening lap getting past, I think this is... Oh, just watching an incident between the Saubers as Valtteri Bottas broke his front wing. It's going to be a bit of a difficult sprint race for him here today, as now Verstappen's all over the back of Fernando Alonso as they come down the final long DRS straight, and he makes that look way too easy with the DRS wide open. Covers off that position in the braking zone, and now his next driver up the road for him is Lewis Hamilton. 140.5 is the fastest lap time from Fernando Alonso. Max Verstappen doing it 140.3. What would he be able to do now in retaliation to Lewis Hamilton ahead of him? Fernando Alonso, though, trying to stick within him. As Spade says, go Hamilton 44, who's currently leading the race right now with a 1.8 second gap to Max Verstappen behind. 400 of you watching alongside with us now. Thank you very much for joining. We are on lap 8 of 19. Hamilton saying this thing won't turn in the low-speed corners. He's really starting to struggle now on this low grip circuit. It's always really tricky on a sprint race weekend, especially on a track that the Formula One grid hasn't been to in 5 years. They've got low amounts of data for the circuit, no data for these new regulation cars. So it's really thrown a bit of a spanner into the works this weekend, and it is providing some good racing. Well, we were hoping for some good racing, at least. The only real racing we've gotten is between Verstappen and Alonso, waiting for some more moves down the back of the grid. Perez still chasing down Carlos Sainz. Half a second is the gap between those two drivers. Sainz trying to chase down Alonso. Now, Ladiwe saying Alonso didn't fight Verstappen, so he took the latter option I mentioned. Alonso's fight is not with Verstappen, but with Hamilton for P2. Yes, I completely agree with you on that. So Alonso just needs to be able to stick with Verstappen now throughout the latter stages of this race and catch Hamilton once he does eventually get caught by Verstappen. If Verstappen is able now to catch him, I say that, but he has now taken about half a second out in that last corner. 0.7 seconds is the gap from Verstappen to Fernando Alonso. Now, as Francis Tremblay says, let's go, Max, as Max is reeling in Lewis Hamilton now for first place. 0.4 seconds is that gap. Max Verstappen making his way through turn one. Bit of an oversteer moment from Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen reeling him in so quickly. James Tottenham asking where you can watch the actual race. Get F1 TV if you want to watch the real race. If not, then you have us here on Forever Motorsports bringing you all of the commentary for every single section. Verstappen now 0.3 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Batty Severo saying, oh no, yes, certainly oh no for Lewis Hamilton, as Verstappen is all over the back of him now. Batty saying, defend, Lewis, defend if anyone can. It certainly is Lewis Hamilton, but will he be able to fend off the reigning world champion Max Verstappen in that absolutely dominant Red Bull right now? Hamilton coming onto the radio. Verstappen getting told Verstappen is the car behind, doing a 41.1. Then saying, leave me to it, man. I see him. Verstappen with a slight snap of oversteer throughout that corner before the long straight. As Doc says, looks like Fernando Alonso is going to drop back to Verstappen. Now all over the back of Lewis Hamilton, makes a late lunge into that last corner. He does dive to the inside, a little bit of a lockup. Verstappen has the better run out of that corner. Lewis Hamilton all over the back of him though now. Will Hamilton be able to hold off onto hold on to the back of him? No, he can't, as Verstappen now is already running away. Half a second is the gap already from Verstappen to Hamilton before the turn 1 corner. Spade saying Lewis hit his front wing. I don't know about that. Naman saying, how is the weather? It is overcast right now, quite cold. As KTC, it's like watching a horror show as Max Verstappen once again takes the lead of a Formula One race, as he is now leading by 0.7 seconds to Lewis Hamilton behind Fernando Alonso, 2.5 seconds. He's getting put under a lot of pressure now from Carlos Sainz behind. 0.5 seconds is the gap from Sainz to Alonso. Just watching this replay of Lewis Hamilton making a big lockup the lap before, which allowed Max Verstappen to really reel him in. Superman saying the old Max Verstappen rivalry, I love it. As Doc says, dang, P2 and Naroko giving their support for Max Verstappen, going, yes. Obviously happy that Verstappen was able to make up that position. Really late lunge from Max Verstappen, but we know if there is an opportunity, he is not going to squander it, and he did take it pretty much immediately. Carlos Sainz now still chasing down Fernando Alonso. 0.8 seconds is that gap. 0.9 seconds is the gap to Fernando Alonso. Alonso now starting to pick up the pace to chase down Lewis Hamilton, his P2 contender for today, as Perez looks at a bit of a move on Carlos Sainz, but still too far back into that large braking zone. Maria saying, now this gives 2021 vibes. Yes, it certainly does. But Hamilton already 2.1 seconds off the back of Max Verstappen. Verstappen just running away with the race right now. Still with the fastest lap of a 140.331 for Max Verstappen. Also, Carlos Sainz really late into that turn 1. He is all over, or rather Sergio Perez is now all over the back of Carlos Sainz because of that small mistake, just losing out on his pace. And now he has a Red Bull all over his rear. What can Sergio Perez do now? 0.3 seconds is the gap between himself and Carlos Sainz. He just needs to be able to keep up to the back of him. As Yanni says, now it's a 2023 vibe. Yes, it certainly is. Doc saying, look how far back Russell is. Where is Russell? Russell only back in P9 right now, not making the best of those soft tires, unfortunately. Pierre Gasly makes a move for P16 on the house of, I think that is Hulkenberg. Lindiwe says Perez's pace is not looking great. Perez looks like he's stuck on P5 and Verstappen cruised to P1. Oh dear. Charles Leclerc now starting to get all over the back of Sergio Perez. Another bit of a DRS train brewing from Alonso all the way down to Norris, as Lando Norris is starting to join in on that party. Then a bit of a gap down to Piastri and Russell, as well as the rest of the grid. Yanni saying, I think Hamilton sabotaged Russell's car. I don't know about that. But Russell is down in P9 right now, chasing down Piastri. 460 of you watching alongside with us. Thank you very much for joining us on Forever Motorsports. Be sure to continue and hit that like button, as well as subscribe to the channel if you are not already. We are now doing Moto GP as well on this channel, which seems to be doing quite well. Adam saying, does Hamilton have a wing damaged? I don't think he does, as Carlos Sainz has a bit of a lockup, which is now allowing Sergio Perez to gain up even more all over the back of Carlos Sainz. Spade says Hamilton being able to lead that long in his little tractor is still quite impressive. I do agree. And Doc says, I think Piastri's first time in China. Yes, it certainly is, as Doc agrees with Spades. Carlos Sainz, after having a bit of a lockup, has fallen out of a second of Fernando Alonso, which means that he won't have DRS range, putting him under a lot of pressure from the likes of Perez and Leclerc behind. Verstappen, though, absolutely just in another race right now, ahead of Hamilton, Alonso, Sainz, Perez, and Leclerc. Alonso, though, still just holding on to third place right now. 0.7 is the gap from Sainz to Alonso. Perez, 0.4 off the back of Carlos Sainz. But they just don't seem to be able to make any late lunges in this track and make up any positions, unfortunately. But they are all really close together. Carlos Sainz takes a very different line through turn 1, which allows him to have a little bit more pace through turn 2. But Sergio Perez does also have quite a lot of pace, getting held back by the likes of that Ferrari, but not able to get past him. Ooh, really close now between Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz into the braking zone, but still not close enough, as I said, for Sergio Perez. Lap 13 of 19 right now for this Formula 1 sprint race. As Spade says, although we expected to see Verstappen win, it would have been nice to see if Hamilton pulled off a great win here today. It would have been phenomenal to see someone else win the sprint race, but I think it's a bit of a tall order with Max Verstappen's current form. He's 5.2 seconds already ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Alonso checking the mirrors heavily coming out of turn 10 right now. He's desperate to hold on to third place ahead of Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, who will be all too happy to snap up any mistake from Fernando Alonso and steal that place away from him. Sainz seems to have found a little bit more pace, pulling away from Sergio Perez now, but not able to make too many inroads on the likes of Alonso. Leclerc saying, I have some D rating, so just struggling in his car a little bit, as Doc saying that Red Bull is a monster. It certainly is. So close right now between our top 6 as Sainz, Perez, Leclerc, and Norris, as well as Alonso, are all fighting it out right now. Lap 14 now of 19, so not long left to go of this race. As Francis says, you mean Max is a monster, referring to Doc's comments there, as Sergio Perez is still struggling to get that place away from Carlos Sainz right now. The Ferrari showing some great pace out here in China this morning. Spade says it is interesting to see Hamilton in a nice car next year. I am excited. And Doc says, I don't think Perez deserves the seat, in my opinion. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens next season. There's a lot of talk about that Red Bull seat, as well as a lot of talk about where Carlos Sainz will go. Of course, he is referring to himself as unemployed right now, as Lindiwe says. Besides Verstappen, everyone's pace seems within range of each other. I hope the sprint race would be a bit more dynamic and action-packed with overtakes, as we're watching an overtake of Alex Albon on Nico Hülkenberg for 18th place there. Yanni saying Max is a monster, the car is good. Look where Perez is. Yes, for sure. Charles Leclerc trying to make a move on Sergio Perez, but Perez fends it off into that big braking zone. But now that gives Lando Norris a bit of an opportunity into that first corner on Charles Leclerc, but still not able to make that stick. Couple of final moves being sent right now in desperation as we get towards the final stages of this race. Carlos Sainz starting to get impatient. Now really closing that gap down to Fernando Alonso ahead of him. The Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, though, placing his car absolutely perfectly to fend off that Ferrari, as now Daniel Ricciardo falls back in position into 13th place. Perez says, I don't have any traction, as Ricciardo steals that place back for 12th. Daniel Torres says, people writing with Perez way too much lately, as Doc says, Max is good. I don't deny that, but I'm yet to say great until he is in different machinery. I have to disagree with you on that. 2021, that season really did prove to me that he had phenomenal amounts of pace in his car. At certain races, it wasn't the form of the field in that season. Of course, the Mercedes haven't been the form for multiple years in the turbo hybrid era, but we will see what is happening. Clifford Steele asking why I'm not talking more about the race. There's not much happening right now, so there's not much to talk about. Carlos Sainz Charles Leclerc starting to mount a bit of an attack on Sergio Perez. Will he have the pace, though, into this corner as they come into the braking zone? But Sergio Perez always leaves it so late on the brake. Charles Leclerc with a lockup, though, as well, just for added measure. And that allows Perez to hold on to 5th for now. Carlos Sainz still trying to chase down Fernando Alonso, but not having that pace right now as they come through turn 1. Max Verstappen still leading by 7.7 seconds to Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso in 3rd, Carlos Sainz in 4th, Perez 5th, Charles Leclerc in 6th, Lando Norris 7th. Not able to make up that pace to Charles Leclerc in 6th. Oscar Piastri then in 8th, George Russell 9th, not being able to make the best out of those soft tyres today. Zhou Guanyu 10th, Magnussen 11th. Late move from Carlos Sainz trying to get past Fernando Alonso now as Alonso's really struggling with traction. Carlos Sainz gets around him after turn 5, but Alonso trying to fight back at him. Will he be able to have the pace? A small touch from him as they come through the X's. But now Carlos Sainz has stolen that position away from Fernando Alonso. Alonso with another late lunge. Will he be able to hold on? And now through comes Sergio Perez as he steals 2 positions in one corner. Sergio Perez now is up into the podium places. Really dirty or really messy moves between all of these drivers as now Fernando Alonso drops down 2 positions as the 2 Ferraris are fighting it out now for 4th place. Sergio Perez up into 3rd with an opportunistic move. Brilliant racing, clean racing, few little touches of tyres, but rubbing is racing, guys, and no big incidents at all. As now Charles Leclerc is going to look at a move on his teammate. Will he be able to go around the outside into this braking zone? He's certainly going to try it. They're getting so close and he gets pushed into the runoff zone. Will he lose that position to Fernando Alonso, though? No, he won't. But now here comes Lando Norris trying to steal that place away from Fernando Alonso on the 17th lap. As Lindy Wessel says, wow, that DRS train is now alive. It certainly is. And that gap is now really close between all of those drivers. Leclerc fighting it out with his teammate Carlos Sainz. Will he be able to make that move into turn 1? Yes, he does. And Charles Leclerc steals 4th position now away from Carlos Sainz. Says, oh no, Alonso has a front right puncture. And that is going to be the end of his sprint race here today. Massive move. So in these final stages, I wonder if that was just because of the little bit of rubbing and some contact between Alonso and Leclerc and a little bit between Sainz that caused that puncture for Fernando Alonso. Very disappointing for him. Had a phenomenal race here today, but unfortunately losing it out on lap 17. That's why front right tyre just made contact with Carlos Sainz's wing, and that is why he has that puncture, unfortunately. But 3 drivers going abreast into one corner, and Sergio Perez just going, I'll take that position, thank you very much. And he's now made his way up into the podium positions. Charles Leclerc 1.5 seconds off the back of Sergio Perez now, and Carlos Sainz 1.5 seconds off the back of his teammate Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris half a second back off of Carlos Sainz now, looking at a lunge into that big braking zone at the end of the straight, but not being able to make it happen as Leclerc coming onto the radio with some expletives, obviously just not very happy with what happened with his teammate there, getting quite close. As Yanni says, here comes Perez, look out Sir Hamilton. Yes, for sure. Making a very Hamilton-esque move there gives me some flashbacks to Britain. I think it was last year or the year before, as now Lando Norris getting all over the back of Carlos Sainz into turn 1 and 2 now. 550 of you watching alongside with us. It is all lighting up in these closing stages of the race. Lap 18 of 19 right now. What will Lando Norris be able to do, as Alonso says, or is told, to retire the car? Disappointing for him here today. Very, very disappointing as he is now putting into the pits and retiring from the race. Lando Norris still trying to chase down Carlos Sainz, not able to make massive inroads right now, as Narol Pojita saying Max has 10 seconds on Fernando Alonso. What is that? As now Fernando Alonso gets rolled into his pits, Very disappointing. Watching this replay from Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Sainz does make a bit of contact with Charles Leclerc, but you have to understand Charles Leclerc trying to come around the outside into that corner. It's not that easy. But Leclerc has now made that move stick into turn 1 on Carlos Sainz. Only 1 lap left now as Verstappen is finishing up his final lap. Now Lando Norris all over the back of Carlos Sainz. He's desperate to try and make up a position. He had a terrible start to his race, falling from first all the way down to 7th and now making his way back into 6th. But a very, very difficult closing stages of the race for him. Hamilton is in a Red Bull sandwich, says Janos Leonson, as Lando Norris still trying to fight it out with Carlos Sainz right now, really all over the back of him, as race control is noting an incident between those two Ferraris in turn 14. Narok Pulchita saying, go Lando, let's see what he is able to do here. Hopefully he can find some pace and make some lunges on Carlos Sainz. Doc saying, great drive from Lewis. It certainly has been here today. He knew he didn't have the pace, but he has managed it so well throughout, just keeping it clean and keeping it consistent, and that has allowed him to hold on to 2nd place here today. Yanni saying, go Stroll. Stroll is currently down in P13. Looking at the rest of the grid, Daniel Ricciardo has made his way up into P11, so close to the points, 0.6 seconds off. Will he be able to make that happen on this final lap? I certainly hope so for Daniel Ricciardo, as Verstappen now comes around the final corner of the Shanghai circuit to finish the sprint race out here in China. Phenomenal race here for Max Verstappen today, starting down in P4, making up those 4 positions to take the race win. But now comes round Lewis Hamilton. He comes round the final corner, crosses that finish line for a phenomenal race for himself as well. And Sergio Perez finishes for good measure for Red Bull in 3rd place. A really exciting race in the final closing stages. Hopefully that gives us a bit of an indicator of what's to happen tomorrow. Lando Norris, they're not able to make that place on Carlos Sainz. Unfortunately, Zhou Guanyu now comes to cross the finish line, as KTC says, was a good sprint race overall. Yes, it certainly was. Still really close, though, between drivers at the end of the grid. Ricciardo not able to make up that position in the end, unfortunately. To make our way through the finishing grid, though, we have Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Norris, Piastri, Russell, Zhou, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Bottas, Ocon, Stroll, Gasly, Tsunoda, Albon, Sargent, and Hülkenberg. And then our only retirement from this race being Fernando Alonso because of that puncture, unfortunately. But that was a brilliant race. Narok Pulchita saying, thank you, Reese. See you all later. Mark will be joining you for qualifying a little bit later at 9 a.m. South Africa time, if I remember correctly. But looking at our race winner, Max Verstappen, just absolutely dominating the sprint race here today with a 13-second gap to P2. Wow. A little bit saying Alonso took out Sainz and scuttled his car. I disagree with you on that. It was clean racing and just a little bit too close between himself and Carlos Sainz. Sainz could have been a little bit more cautious, but difficult. And unfortunately, that's racing sometimes. Rubbed a little bit, got a bit of a puncture, and that was his race over. Hamilton coming onto the radio now after a great sprint race for himself, starting to make up the positions where they should be, but not really the true pace of that Mercedes car, unfortunately, being aided by the rain in sprint qualifying 3 yesterday afternoon. Driver of the day being asked by Doc. Who would I say that would be? Good question. Verstappen had a phenomenal race, but I think people are a bit tired of Verstappen. I'd love to say Alonso, but he's out right now. So I am going to say Sergio Perez. He made up those positions when it all counted in the end, being so opportunistic, making up 2 positions into 1 corner with some really clean racing. So for the driver of the sprint, I'm going to say Sergio Perez. But thank you very much for joining me here on Forever Motorsports. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification icon as well so that you can be notified whenever we do go live on this channel. And you can stay up to date with all the latest Formula One and motorsports news. Of course, we're also doing Moto GP now, if you're interested in that as well. As Lindy will say, see you guys later for quali. Yes, for sure, we will see you there later. As just to wrap up the sprint race, once again to go through our grid, Max Verstappen took a dominant sprint race win, 13 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton in second, Sergio Perez in third, Charles Leclerc fourth, Carlos Sainz fifth, Lando Norris sixth, Piastri 7th, Russell 8th, Joe 9th, Magnussen 10th, Ricciardo 11th, Bottas 12th, Ocon 13th, Stroll 14th, Gasly 15th, Tsunoda 16th, Albon 17th, Sargent 18th, Hülkenberg 19th, and Alonso being the only retirement from this race down in 20th. And we're having Lewis Hamilton looking at that Red Bull car at the moment in Parc Ferme. Brilliant sprint race here today. Be sure to let us know who your driver of the day was. And I'm going to be signing out now for Forever Motorsports. I've been Reese. Thank you very much for joining me. Cheers.